In this video, we show you how you can use the marketplace called TenMen, the logistics sourcing platform, which has a solution for transportation procurement that none of its competitors have. You can register or access the platform on the tenman.eu website. The menu items of the user interface are located on the left, which can be divided into three parts. Company and user data, which must be filled in during registration. RFI, Request for Information menu item and subsections. RFQ, Request for Quotation menu item and subsections. Tendering on the TenMen platform consists of two steps. The first step of which is to filter the most suitable carriers for the tender from the TenMen database. This is the RFI phase. Since TenMen's carrier database contains more than 60,000 vehicles of road carriers from 32 countries, with the designation of transportation destinations, during the RFI parameters can be specified that the software compares with the database and only those carriers who meet the main criteria receive the tender. It is important to emphasize that TenMen does not provide solutions for immediate transport needs, but for those needs that can be set to be regular and require a competition process. During the demonstration, we do not release a real tender because by sending it, carriers would receive the tender, so we only present the functionality of the software. In the RFI section, the submenu item Submit RFI must be selected. Completing an RFI consists of 7 steps, but it is not time-consuming to complete, nor it is mandatory to complete all points. The most important is the one called filtering, because you, the customer that releases the tender, can enter the important parameters and conditions here that apply to the carrier or carriers to be selected. The name of the tender must be entered. This is mandatory. Completing the other points is optional, but recommended. Minimum fleet size. Here, you can enter the minimum number of trucks that applicant carriers must have. If a value of 0 remains, then the number of applicants reached will not be limited based on this. Minimum headcount and minimum annual revenue. If the size of the company to be selected is important to the customer, based on the number of employees or sales revenue, then you can set the minimum requirement here. Even in this case, if the value remains 0, the range of applicants will not be limited based on these criteria. If it is important to you in which country or countries the applicants have to have their own entity, this can be set in the Locations menu item. The Destinations menu item is used to mark the countries that are the most important from the perspective of transport destinations. If they are marked, TenMen will only send the RFI material to those carriers who have marked the given countries as their shipping markets, so they are sure to be knowledgeable in the given areas. In the About Us section, the system basically automatically fills in the customer's data. The top shipping routes can be marked manually, which is in line with the destinations part of the previous point, but even informative annual quantities can be entered specifically here. Contracting. Basic information related to the contract can be added in order to provide additional information to suitable carriers based on the filtering. Completing these points is also not mandatory, but recommended. In the Contracting Parties field, you can enter which entity of a given company will be the contracting party. You can even upload the text of the contract at the contract template point. The start and end date of the contract can also be specified. If you as a customer consider it important to specify the payment conditions, KPI, or to explain the fuel surcharge mechanism, or to specify more special invoicing requirements, then these can also be done. As well as the main criteria for the selection of carriers, the provision of which will help to set a career focus in the bidding process. In Cargo section, you can enter the most important information about the goods to be carried. Again, this can be important for the reason that carriers can assess their own interest and ability before the offer phase. In the case of normal palletized non-seasonal deliveries, this part is not so important. However, if there is a need for a special equipment such as box, reefer, container chassis, low bed trailer, and so on, and or the goods are of high value or are of a project based, then point 4 is absolutely suitable for marking them. In particular, we recommend the point other important information to your attention, where the special means of transport, equipment, or other special requirements can be specified. Milestones. The most important part of this section is completing the RFI return, RFQ release, and RFQ return deadlines. This is also important information for the carriers who receive the RFI, and the software also sends reminders based on this. The additional deadlines are optional from the point of view of the functionality of the software, but at the same time, they are very important for those carriers that are interested in the tender. In the questions part, questions can be asked and sent to the applicants if any information on some other topic is required from those who are interested based on the RFI and before the RFQ is sent out. Submission carries out the sending of the RFI, and TenMen sends the RFI material based on the entered data to the suitable carrier companies considering the filtering criteria. RFI materials that have already been started and or sent can be found under the RFI list menu item, while those that have been closed can be found under closed RFIs. Based on the RFI material, commercial document package can be prepared and sent to the carriers that respond by deadline. That is, the fee schedule and other documents describing the transport tasks and their details and criteria. This is the RFQ, request for quotation. Uploading the RFQ is very easy. In point 1, you must select the relevant RFI. The rest of the data is automatically filled in based on the RFI. The build sheet is a help for those who do not have their own price request table that is already in use. For both FTL and LTL, TenMen recommends a format in which all essential data and information important to the applicants can be inserted. These files can be modified and tailored to your company. In point 3, either the format recommended by TenMen or your own file format can be used and uploaded to request prices. In addition, you can also upload other documents which the system will send to those carriers who have proved to be suitable and interested after the RFI stage, with approval in the submission field. Offers received by the deadline of the RFQ will be available in the RFQ list, and from there you can arrange the next steps directly with the offer-making carriers. If needed, the experts of TenMen and KVX Innovations are also happy to assist in the analysis of offers, price negotiations, and selection until the tender is closed. Some frequently asked questions and their answers. If there is a preferred supplier partner who definitely needs to receive the tender but has not yet registered on the TenMen platform, they can do so for free. If you wish that certain service providers do not receive the tender, after announcing their names, the TenMen team will check whether they are registered to TenMen, and if so, they can be made inactive for the certain tender. TenMen has no online auction function. The monthly fee service is recommended for those who constantly have a need for transportation or who need to assess the transportation charges for new deals, or if the Incoterms changes in the case of export or import. For those who request freight charges once or only a few times a year, the occasional use package is recommended. In case of other questions, your TenMen sales representative is available. Thank you for your attention.